The bubble pops. The collapse begins. This is what many people are saying. Hey everybody, you're watching Bull, Boom, Bear, Bust. Today we're going to talk about the automobile price bubble that many are calling a bubble. But is it a bubble? Well, the word bubble indicates that at some point it's going to pop. So is there a bubble? Well, let's find out. Automobile sales and prices drop. Inventory tells a different story, however. Production and supply are still constrained, and new vehicles are a better deal than used vehicles in many cases right now. We're going to tell you why. We're going to get into all this right now. Now here we're looking at Fred data, and this is recent as of this month here in April, and we see that total vehicle sales have dropped from February to March. Actually, from January to February to March, they've dropped twice now since January, month over month. And we're also much lower now in sales than we were at this point last year. So this is a year-over-year drop as well. Now, there's several different reasons, and one of these is definitely higher interest rates. The higher interest rates are preventing people from buying vehicles. Now, we see it in other markets as well, the real estate market with rising mortgage rates. But with these high prices on these vehicles, people are having even a more difficult time qualifying. One, the prices are high, and two, incomes aren't really matching or keeping up with the rising prices, and now throw higher interest rates on top of that, and it is cooling off some of the demand. But two, FOMO buyers have already bought. These are the people that fear of missing out, FOMO. They figured that car prices were never ever going to come back down. Are they right? You let me know. But there's many people out there that went and bought because they feared that we're just going to continue to see this inflation, that there was no light at the end of the tunnel, that there was never going to be any return back to what they called normal. And a lot of them went out, and that, of course, increased the demand, and that pushed prices up even higher as people panic bought vehicles because fear of missing out on ever being able to afford a vehicle. When you think prices are never going to come back down, it's a pretty scary thought. And a lot of those people were out there just buying up cars, getting loans that they knew they couldn't afford. So yes, eventually we're going to see that dam break as well with all the people that over leveraged and bought these expensive vehicles. But that happened in many cases, fear of missing out. Well, those buyers already bought, and there's less panic now. So therefore, we're starting to see a slowdown, but it's not a very big slowdown. It's not significant enough sale drop to bring prices back down very far. Let's go over to Wolf Street and see what they have to say over there. Over at wolfstreet.com, a great website, by the way, you may want to check it out. Wolf Richter, he does all his own charts and analysis. Used vehicle prices finally dropped, but won't plunge all the way back down to earth in this crazy environment. Here's why. Well, one of the big things is we're still seeing big supply constraints. Now, Wolf shows us in here the Manheim Used Vehicle Index, and we see it did drop just as sales dropped from January to February, now in March. So when sales drop, you can just say, well, there's not enough inventory, so of course there's not enough vehicles to buy, so sales are down. But when prices also drop as sales drop, that tells you that there's definitely some cooling off in this market. Right, but again, it's not a very big drop. We saw a couple pauses, and we saw the drop, about 6 months ago, which looks to have been a seasonal drop during the winter months. But now we see this drop happening as we are exiting spring and entering summer here in just another, month and a half. So it's definitely going to be something that we need to keep an eye on here. Could it be a turning point? Well, possibly, especially if interest rates are allowed to remain where they're at and they continue to go higher. I don't think anyone knows exactly what's going to happen with interest rates, but we're definitely going to keep an eye on it for you. Also, the same website gives us the used vehicle inventory on dealer lots, and we see that yes, it does drop as it does every spring going into summer. As the weather does bring out more buyers, it also sees a lot of newly licensed drivers and people that are going to be graduating get their graduation gifts, and many times it's vehicles. So yes, you usually see every spring going into summer a drop in inventory, but you see it's really not much lower than previous years, except for, of course, the health crisis when that came out. That was a whole nother story. But last year, we look at March 2021, the inventory was even less. So we're actually higher, or we actually have more inventory now versus 1 year ago. Another sign that we're seeing some significant cooling. Now, prices haven't corrected much yet, as you saw in the previous chart, but it definitely is something to keep an eye on. What do we think about all this, people? Let me know down in the comments. Is there a bubble, and has the bubble popped? Is this going to be the collapse in car prices? Well, I would never say that there's going to be a collapse in this environment, considering all the supply constraints and all the shutdowns in many different plants. Even over the past couple of weeks, we see many articles about shutdowns and production being stopped or delayed. Just do a search for automobile production, and you'll see several different reports come up here about production still being looking not so good in many cases. And there's even a warning out of China that production might halt completely because of the health crisis re-emerging over there and the new shutdowns. Now, still on the topic of car prices, let's take a look at the most expensive states for cars right now. And this is going to be the average price of a used car in each state. We're just going to look at some of the bigger ones here. The states with the lowest used car prices, the top 5. Number 1, Connecticut, just over $30,000. Idaho, number 2. Ohio, number 3. Indiana, 4. And Michigan, number 5. Now, a lot of those states are Rust Belt states. And when a vehicle just gets a few years old in one of those states, you really start seeing the bodies get really, really rusty. So it's no surprise or coincidence that some of the lower priced states all happen to be states with snow and ice. And when they put that salt on the road, that can really get to the body of some of these vehicles. And sometimes you see vehicles start rusting out in just a few years. Now let's drop down here to the most expensive states. We're just going to scroll down here. This is KTLA, by the way, for those that want to check this out. The national average used car right now, $34,852. And we'll continue down here to the most expensive states. We see number 1 most expensive. Wow, Montana, Wyoming, West Virginia, Alaska, Maine, and North Dakota. I really thought California was going to be up higher in the most expensive states, but California is actually 42 most expensive. Now we see Montana and Wyoming in there. Well, there goes my snow and rust theory. Either way, you guys please let me know down in the comments. Has the bubble busted in the car price? Gonna soon plunge. And one more thing before we wrap this up, new versus used vehicles. Well, there's people out there saying that new vehicles now are a better deal because a lot of times people do not want to wait for delivery of a new vehicle, and they just want to buy something right then and there right now. And that's really making the prices of used vehicles go up much faster than new vehicles. Because if you buy a new vehicle right now, you may have to wait several months, in many cases even up to 6 months or more. So the price run-ups aren't as severe because a lot of people just don't want to wait. And there's actually a mechanic out there talking about this. And this is Scott Kilmer, and there's even an article out of Auto Revolution. A famous mechanic says you shouldn't buy a secondhand car now, and talks about the delay in new vehicles, which is pushing people more towards used vehicles and therefore making the prices even more ridiculous for used vehicles in some cases. Now, new vehicles are still more expensive on average, but compared to what you get for how many miles it has on it, so people are paying $20,000, $30,000 for a vehicle with 80 or 100,000 miles when you can get a brand new one for not much more, in some cases 15-20% more, because of such a huge surge in the demand for used vehicles now, because people don't want to wait because of the delay in new vehicles. So is there a big price collapse on the way? Please let me know. Thanks everybody for being here. Most of all, thank you for commenting and giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to continue to support this channel. Thank you very much. Bye for now, everybody.